Okay. Woo.
Hi. Hey,
Hi.
friends. Welcome to In Response, interviews with intriguing internalizers. My name's Mia Park. Welcome to this interview series. I am in Chicago, Illinois, and today is July 18th, 2020. And we are still in the middle of a health pandemic. In fact, right now, COVID-19 cases are spiking in America. So just a little reality check in there. And we're also still very much in the struggle for racial justice, especially here in America. So we have a lot of outside stimulation. And so we are so honored. I'm so honored today to have an inside response to that with Kathy Ornish, better known as KO. Hi, KO.
Hi. So good to be here with everybody. Thank you, Mia, for inviting me.
Oh my gosh, of course. And you're right now in Florida, correct? Can you tell us where you are in
Yes.
Florida?
Yeah, I'm in Lake Worth Beach, Florida, which is just the town just south of West Palm Beach, on the Atlantic. And as most everyone knows, infamously, it's hopping here with COVID. So it's been an interesting evolution to watch what's happened here and people's response. And I'm in the Palm Beach County, which is the farthest north county. Most of it's here, and then Fort Lauderdale, and then Miami. So yeah,
Oh boy,
it's happening.
it's happening. Well, let me
Yeah.
check in with you first. So I just want to share with you with everyone. KO and I met through yoga. So we met 12 or 13 years ago at
Yeah.
an ashram in Pennsylvania called Himalayan Institute or Himalayan Institute. And we both studied with Gary Kraftsow. And KO was assisting Gary Kraftsow at one of his trainings there. And I was like, who's this like super cool lady with this fabulous hair? She's so grounded. And I remember asking both you and Gary a pranayama or we can call it like a breathing technique. And you both answered, and I was just like, so cool. And I remember I was like, I would have lunch with this lady. And I, so I remember like getting to know you then. And then over a decade later, I took one of Gary's teacher trainings that you are a part of the teaching staff of. So I was
Yeah.
so lucky for me to see you about 2 weeks at a time, 6 months apart for 2 years, and learn from
Great.
you. So, KO, everyone out there, KO is I mean, she's an excellent yoga teacher.
Thank you.
There's yoga teachers, honestly, and I've been teaching since 2006 now. KO is an excellent yoga teacher. So
Thank you,
I'm
Mia.
just honestly speaking, when I learned from you as putting on my teacher's hat, I learned how to teach better from you. KO is
Thank you.
patient. She's
That's like the
extremely
highest compliment.
Oh my gosh, KO's, I just could go on and on. She's articulate, patient, understands the questions thoroughly, and answers just like super clearly. So it's been a gift as a student. Plus, KO was doing like biomechanics and like kind of a trickier part of yoga and very articulate. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure. And I actually think we met in Chicago with Rod even before Himalayan Institute.
Oh
I
my
think
gosh,
maybe like in I think in maybe even '03 or '04. So it's been a long time. Yeah.
it has been a long time. Actually, it may have been '06 because I started my first teacher training with Rod was in 2006.
Okay. It might have been then. Yeah. Oh,
It
that's
may have been
cool.
then. So that's cool. Isn't that cool? That's so cool.
And of course, I was in Michigan for a long time. So I used to go to Chicago fairly frequently, especially when Rod was teaching there. So yeah.
Yeah, and Gary too. And Gary too.
Gary
Yeah.
too. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
So
And
KO is
and you are just this amazing student, always just this very hungry mind, just really interested in knowing more in the depths of knowing, both from an intellectual standpoint and then, an embodied standpoint.
oh, thanks. Just trying, I like to think of myself as nosy in a good way, I think
In a
sometimes.
good way, right?
So KO, yeah, is there anything else that you would like to share with us about yourself?
Well, I'm a yoga therapist. That's what I do full time. But I moved to Florida August of last year, so it's coming up on a year. So most of it's been, creating some work here. So I've been seeing people online since I got here and even prior. And so, of course, with the COVID, I was already working online, so it's not a big jump to have to do that. So it's been interesting to work from home, as so many people have learned, and how to really create that intimacy with yoga therapy, which is what it's about. How to do that online, how to do that in a different medium rather than in person. So that's also been very interesting for a lot of people who have not worked online. For me, it's not that difficult, but it's a big transition for a lot of people not to actually be with you in person, to be able to have that intimacy that's required for the therapeutic process. But anyway, I've been just getting used to living here and making new friends and creating a new life here, and then seeing people doing workshops and seeing people doing yoga therapy online. Yeah, it's been good.
Oh, good. And, like you're so grounded. So I feel like you could weather this storm, as well as anybody. I mean, better than most people.
Well, that's been interesting because, I think how are people getting through this time without the tools of yoga? I know how much I've turned toward that to really assist me in staying grounded and staying clear and, being clear and not being reactive and then dealing with the reactions, right? But that gets more into the internal. So I jump ahead.
Oh no, that's okay. We can do that. But you shared with us that you're in Florida, and right now Florida is just, the COVID cases are rising there. And I also just want to mention again, I did talk about the struggle for racial justice happening all over the world, especially in America. Would you mind giving us a little external world report of what that scene is like where you are?
It's not terribly active down here. There were during the Black Lives Matter time more recently where there was so much gathering. There was some gatherings here, but it's not a big thing happening here. And I'm pretty much stuck in my house, like so many people, and I'm not going out as much. So I'm really dealing with people's my orientation right now where I feel like I can make a difference is in one person at a time or very small groups at a time, helping them deal with their own stressors around social injustice, whether it be their own personal experience of it or their frustrations, anger, and sadness about seeing even though it's not affecting them directly because they're not someone of color or other race or what have you, but just the sadness and the grief and the anger around what can they do and the powerlessness to try to help. So that's kind of where my orientation has been, where I feel like I can do the most good and still stay safe, and where my skills are really is helping individuals or small groups of people in dealing with their own personal experience or the experience happening outside them.
That is such a fantastically inspirational share. Spoken like a true yoga therapist. Thank you. And I just want to say, because today it is what it is, I just want to give a rest in power and rest in peace acknowledgement to Congressman John Lewis, who we all lost
Who
last
just
night.
passed, right?
I'm actually going to, yeah, I feel really connected to that human being. And I'm so sad, especially for his loss, just because of his civil rights struggle for decades and decades. And I feel like that hurts, especially right now in the middle of the struggle. So I just want to kind of give
Mm-hmm.
a acknowledgement for that. But
Mm-hmm.
to come back to what you
Yeah.
said, I think it was very helpful that your set of tools and your strength is in helping others hold space for themselves and what they're going through. And again, I think that's what we do in yoga, and that's the alignment of yoga therapy. So, can you explain to people what yoga therapy is and then talk about your approach to it?
Mm. So, yoga therapy is really taking all the tools of yoga. So, unfortunately, in this day and age, most people think of yoga essentially as just sort of physical postures, and those postures have become reduced to exercise. But the real practice of yoga therapy and the depth of yoga therapy is using the postures and our ability to kind of underdo and be with the mental and physiological and subtle things that are happening inside the body so that we're really embodied and tuning in at all those levels within our body. So using the breathing practices, the mindfulness practices, the connection to something larger practices, chanting, touch, various other spiritual practices to try to help people learn to decrease their suffering, whether that be on the physical, physiological, or psycho-emotional or spiritual level, or all levels ideally, because they're all sort of tied together. And using all these tools specifically addressed to the individual. So the individual's issues and desires to change, and their personality. So just because someone has an issue, let's say anxiety, I wouldn't necessarily give the 10 people with anxiety the same thing to do, because how does it manifest for them? What is the underlying root? What's their personality? What's their interest? So really using those tools to create change in that individual in a way that they can connect with and feel inspired to do, because it has to be sustainable.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The magic S word, sustainability.
That's right.
There are
That's right.
so many kind of, we can say new age or kind of like culturally appropriated techniques from lots of systems that are these quick fixes, or, that work, that may give some kind of energetic or mental or emotional stimulation to a person that they think I'm healing or I'm healed, but it's just not sustainable, right?
Right. And what we're looking at with yoga therapy is not just a way of, what I say is, look, we're not just looking to soothe you, although that is certainly part of the effect. We're looking to get at the underlying cause of the pain and the suffering, and to transcend that, and to really use that pain and suffering as a tool for moving past it, moving beyond it, using it, not trying to dismiss it, but to transcend it, And so it's like all these things are welcome. It's so easy to be averse to it, but we're trying to welcome all of it, so that it becomes a tool for our own spiritual evolution, essentially, And that has to be sustainable, because something else is always going to come, right? Something else is always going to turn your cart over and go, and you think, oh, I'm past that. Well, no, here it comes again, just a different form. So there has to be something that's really sustainable that we can always turn to and use as a tool for our own evolution, for our own soothing, for our own self-transformation.
Yeah, thank you for that. And clearly, people watching and listening, KO is very deep. She's a deeper soul. So, would you mind sharing, like, do you have, like, what's your spiritual response to what's happening right now?
Yeah, that's so much a part of my practice right now. At first, I was so agitated by it. And I realized that underneath all that agitation was a sense of grief, and part of my practice is really allowing all emotions, allowing all responses. And when I really moved into that feeling of grief and really understood it, it was much easier for me to then just have a sense of self-compassion for myself, but also for the world around me. And two things I feel like are really important here is that, allowing the emotions, having compassion for yourself, and being clear that that's not the only thing. That one of my big things is, there's this mystery. I call it the mystery, and it's like the mystery. We don't understand what can come out of things. And we always think that if it's good, oh, that's good. And if it's bad, oh, that's bad. Or if it's pleasant, oh, that's good. And if it's unpleasant, oh, that's bad. And I'm really, whether it be emotions or stuff, that's happening outside us that's ugly. And I'm really trying to sort of let everything be as it is, and still have hope and a deep sense of connection and joy that within that mystery, something comes out of it. Something evolves beautifully out of it. And I don't think that that's um, uh, um, just an idealist view. like, oh, well, everything's going to be fine. I don't think it's really that. But that a deep faith that we don't know, that's the mystery. We don't know what beauty and good can grow out of something unpleasant and ugly. And so I think the onus is upon all of our humanity to know that while, you know, things that are not good, things that are ugly, things that maybe seem like evil are there, that we continue to turn ourselves toward the light, and to know that through allowing all emotions, through turning toward unchanging consciousness, to turning toward a deep faith that the ultimately the good will grow out. It doesn't mean that bad and unpleasant isn't going to, like, it's going to be destroyed. It's not going to happen. It's like, oh, I'm never going to have bad emotions. No, I'm never going to have painful emotion. It's not going to happen. It's the yin and yang of the universe. But just keep, like, faith in that mystery. I just have a deep faith in that mystery that something good will come, which is very different than something bad will end.
Can you say more about that?
The something bad and unpleasant may never end, but that doesn't mean that something good can't grow out of it. I think about if you get really sick, and that's very challenging and unpleasant. Can something good grow out of that? Can you turn that into a deeper self-understanding, a deeper understanding of the pain and suffering that's around you? Do you know what I mean? So it's like something good, something light, something can grow out of it. And that's the mystery.
Do you think that what I'm here, beautiful words. I'm totally down with what you're saying. I'm visualizing what you're explaining to be kind of like sequential or linear. And I think, would you agree, like, they can coexist? Like,
I think both, they coexist and they're linear. So it can be a linear process, meaning today, I'm going to allow what is unpleasant, and I'm going to allow what is unpleasant, and I'm going to also be in the same space of knowing that that mystery of allowing will take me to something light. And that you can't know. And it's like, we want to know, am I going to get well? Is the world going to get well? Is, evil going to disappear? Well, you can't know, but I have faith in that mystery of both coexistence, but it's more complex than that. I feel like it's a little bit more less static than just coexistence. That in the act of opening up and allowing all that is, it moves it out of being static. Does that make sense? I mean, I realize it's totally esoteric, that's what becomes the motivating factor, is the allowing, is the being open to it.
That's the motivating factor, the allowing and being open to all of it. That's wonderful.
But that's what moves it forward. That's what keeps it from being static.
So being such a learned teacher and a longtime therapist, yoga therapist, what would you recommend as an access point for someone who wants to start to experience what you're explaining?
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a great question. So, because you're saying there, for somebody who has no experience,
Sure.
one of the tools that I really use a lot with people is, I feel like everybody's had some experience of a deep sense of connection and spaciousness. Like, you're on top of a mountain and it's like, man, it's like, infinite space, a deep sense of oneness. And I feel like everybody's had some experience in their life, even if it was very short-lived, where they had that, like, deep embodied experience, right? And I think you can access it through regular meditation, Most people have experienced it in either meditation or in nature, but I've also talked to people who've experienced it in lots of different situations. But I feel like if we can kind of glean that embodied feeling of oneness, then that's an access point. And it literally is a point, no, it's not literally. It's like a point of experience. And turning toward that feeling is sort of like the sunflower turning toward the light. That's how I imagine it.
That's awesome. I'm thinking about, I think because we're in this pandemic of racial justice, I'm thinking about the accessibility that some people have and don't have. And what I love about what you're saying and these ideas that you're sharing is that that internal experience can happen to an individual in any circumstance. It could be standing on a mountaintop, or it could be maybe looking at your fingernails. It's very personal, right?
It's very personal.
But I love that the accessibility of connecting to that feeling of oneness can be, yeah, it just can happen almost spontaneously, or you can really search for it, but it's still possible for every soul and every body.
Yes, and to tag on to what you've just said is that then the onus of you as a human being who wants to create more change in the world from a positive standpoint, whether you're an active social justice person out in the world doing, or you're like me, just kind of one person working with one or small groups at a time, or just out in the world as a human being trying to make literally the smallest change by just being nice to the people around you. To me, the key in what you said is that we are consciously and um, and regularly trying to connect with and cultivate that feeling. Not just I had it, spontaneously I had it. Oh, and then you forget. That's the problem. Is we want to try not to keep forgetting, and the way to not keep forgetting is to keep trying consciously to connect with it and remember it.
Yeah, smart, right? That I'm remembering, because I forget all the time too.
Who
So
doesn't,
if I'm
right?
forgetting, I would think that other people are forgetting. We're all doing it. But
We all
Kale,
forget.
we all forget. This is such a great talk. I'm sad that we're at about time. Is there
Oh,
any
wow, that
last?
was fast.
I know it goes by fast, but you're just you have so much to offer. Is there any other bit of um, advice, or maybe something from your heart you'd like to share with us?
Oh, so much of what I have shared is from my heart. I guess, just a couple short things, which is, um, uh, try to be with feelings, try to be with the grief and what's happening, which is very different than feeding it, but just allowing it. Learn to have compassion for yourself and for others in this time. Uh, that really, I think, helps with feeling like there's still good in the world, because we tend to focus negativity bias. We tend to focus on what's not good. And I'm not saying don't do anything about it. I'm just simply saying, if we really want to try to do something about it, we have to do something from a place of openness and love in the heart as well. So, if you've had that kind of oneness, open, spacious connection, try to stay connected with that in whatever way you can, and try to be in the world from that space as much as possible. It's work, especially right now. It's work. We feel isolated, we feel angry with what we see in the world, and we feel a sense of grief. And how do we allow that anger and grief to still be present and allowable, but not be the primary source from which we act in the world?
Yeah, again, you just said a lot. I love everything. I love the phrase I love the phrase negativity bias. We have a lot of that, especially in American culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially with social media and the imposition of joy. I have to say, like my biggest gripe with the holiday season when it comes to Thanksgiving and Christmas is the imposition of joy, the pressure to be happy and to like it's like we're having joy crammed down our throat. And to be honest, that's part of my problem with most yoga practices, even senior teachers these days. That whole, the idea of ananda being bliss or being joy inside of us. I think that's a great concept, but not everyone is there yet. And
Absolutely.
to insist upon a person who's not accessing that their core is joy, I think is a little damaging to people who want to access yoga and the depth of what's there. So that,
but how do they, if they're not taught that that's something that's there, it's for some, that's like a revelation, like, oh, that lives inside me. So the key is, how do you wake that up inside your students, but not make them feel like, well, if that's supposed to be inside me and I don't know, then I'm a failure,
That's tricky. That is tricky. We could go on, and maybe we should.
Right?
Maybe we'll do this again in a different context or something, because this is fascinating, Ko. But cool. Ko, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
This is one of my favorite of these interviews. You have so many valuable things to share, really. So very inspirational, educational.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Great to be here. And I'd be happy to join you again. What a treat to be able to share to lots of people. Hope everybody stays well. Peace, joy, and grief and anger and all the other emotions, right?
I love that. I love that. Peace, joy, and everything else you're feeling. Anger and resentment.
Right.
That's great.
That's right.
All of it.
All right.
So thanks for tuning, everyone. This has been In Response, interviews with intriguing internalizers with Mia Park, and today with Ko, Kathy Ornish. So if you're interested in supporting this series, you can log on to my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Mia Park. Support me and my team to turn these interviews into podcasts and make them accessible even in every ways that we can. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.